everyone, Nicole Russo and Ashley Mailloux welcoming you back to the Oaks Countdown. And last week we told you about Good Cheer, who's likely to be the favorite for the Kentucky Oaks as she comes in unbeaten, but she might not be so short a price after all, as Quietside comes in on a roll off 2 stakes wins at Oaklawn, and here she is winning the Fantasy on Saturday. We'll talk a little bit more about Quietside's development, but runner-up Simply Joking gave a good account of herself off an unplanned layoff as well, and should really move forward into the Oaks.
Yeah, this is what you want to see from these two fillies. They were the ones to beat. There was a scratch of Kenny McPeak's filly, Take Charge and the Lady, who will be racing hopefully in the Ashland weather, depending. But these two put on a horse race. I don't think the time necessarily, Nicole, was the flashiest. They did go 48 to the half, but both fillies ran very well. I think for Quietside, she's been able to answer the question, can she put back-to-back wins together? She's had a lot of seconds and thirds on the resume just based on who she faced, Immersive, and you mentioned some of the other names. But she's done very good at Oaklawn Park. And I think for Simply Joking, the layoff probably didn't help her.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned Quietside resume. And as we take a look at that here, I mean, you'll see that she was certainly knocking on the door as a juvenile against top competition. She's taken not only a step forward from 2 to 3, but a step forward in every start this year from a figures perspective. When you see a horse improving and improving and improving, you always wonder where the ceiling is going to be. So certainly that's going to be the question coming into the Oaks, if she can keep improving. But her current trajectory is certainly going to make her one of the favorites at this point, along with Good Cheer.
Yeah, I absolutely see her in the top 3 or 4 betting interest just based on those last 2. And she's beaten a lot of nice fillies, one of them being even 5G2 back in Mahima. Names that we'll get to in a little bit. But I think in terms of her path, they're doing everything right. They're managing her correctly. She's taking those steps forward. And you bring up a great point about not hitting the ceiling. At least her upwards, though, they're not huge increases, right, in terms of her figures. They're just enough that you keep on thinking she's got a little bit more to offer in her next start.
Absolutely. And, another positive for Quietside on the weekend, she bested last time out in the Honeybee. She bested 5G, and 5G flattered her with her own win on Saturday. Do want to mention before we look at this race, the Gulfstream Park Oaks, that the Queen's MG, who was pulled up, is reported to be doing well by her owner, C2 Racing. She had surgery for a knee injury on Monday. They said she's resting comfortably. Her racing career is over, but the prognosis for her recovery does look promising. So 2 significant things as we watch 5G, really continuing well to the wire here. One, things certainly got easier for her as one of her top adversaries in the race was not able to continue on and give her a challenge. And 2, we may have our pace setter in the Kentucky Oaks here.
She certainly could be. She is quick. She showed that once again. And for her, it was nice to see her get a win after being so close to one in her prior start. Another one that's developing at the right time. And I think when you might have looked at her earlier in her career, distance might have been a little bit of a question. Still will be a question when she maybe faces 13 other fillies at a true route distance. But based on what they're doing with her, another one that's been handled very well by the connections. And I think off that win, my one thing would be, who did she really face? I think some of the rivals in there were just a cut below what she might have faced, say, in her prior start in the Honeybee down at Oaklawn Park. But you can't take it away from her. She did win nicely.
Yeah, and both of these fillies, Quietside and 5G, secured their ticket to the Kentucky Oaks with these continued good performances. These were 100-point preps to the winner. And next week, we'll be able to give you a final look at the points leaderboard toward the 14-horse Oaks field. Basketball got the final 4 this weekend. We have the final 3, the last 3 points races for the Kentucky Oaks taking place this weekend around the country. And some really interesting things. I'm excited to see Tenma, who I think is the leader on the West Coast, go in the Santa Anita Oaks. That's a short field. If it were to scratch down to 5 starters from its 6 entries, which it looks like it will, the points for that race would be reduced. Doesn't really matter for Tenma, might matter for a few others in the field. But the deepest overall field and the race I'm most excited to see would be the Ashland at Keeneland. What are you looking forward to this weekend?
They're all interesting. I think, though, the Ashland is the one to look at. I mentioned Take Charge Milady scratched out of the fantasy. Would have been my top pick, Nicole. Now she's going to have to take a different sort of path to the Kentucky Oaks by using the Ashland as that springboard. And for her, she had a minor foot issue, which is why they decided to take another week and get her ready. She's got a nice drill coming in. So excited to see what she can do. But you mentioned it's the deepest field. I think there's a lot of quality fillies in there, and it'll be interesting from a pace perspective how the race shapes up as well.
Absolutely. And we mentioned the Honeybee is kind of a key race with Quietside and 5G finishing 1-2 and them both earning victories last weekend. Several in the Ashland coming out of the Honeybee, including Take Charge Milady, including beaten favorite Muhimma. Excited to see if she can maybe get back to her best game and take a step forward here.
Yeah, it'll be very, very interesting. So it's kind of a loaded Friday and Saturday in terms of the points races, excuse me. And we'll do a preview for each one of those races along the way. So a lot for us to dive into.
A lot to dive into this week, and there will be a lot to dive into next week as we look at the results of those races and bring you that final Oaks points leaderboard as we get closer and closer to the first Friday in May and earning your spot in the starting gate. We'll see you right here to recap it all next week on the Oaks Countdown.